Before we get into this episode, there's something that might be of interest that I wanted to tell you about. Scene and Heard, who run this podcast, have been asked by Scotland Food and Drink to undertake a strategic review of the Scotland Food and Drink Excellence Awards. Now, these Excellence Awards have been going for almost 20 years and are a huge mainstay of the food and drink sector. But it's time to ensure that they're still relevant. So if you have ever been involved in the Scotland Food and Drink Excellence Awards, or even if you've ever had an opinion about them, we would love for you, please, to complete our survey. So if you go to the On Farm Twitter, which is at @on_farm UK, and click the link in the bio, there will be a tab in there that will take you to the survey, and it should only take you a very short while to complete, but we would be enormously grateful.
Monty, thank you very much for your time and covering DoddieAid on your podcast.
This week on Farm, we're all about the huge DoddieAid fundraising push. It's only fitting that we hear first from the big man himself.
You're doing an amazing job. Have a good time and thanks again for your support.
I think that was always something I really appreciated about Doddie, was that I totally imagine that he has hard days, but he's trying to do something about it and he's trying to change people's lives for MND, and I think that's amazing.
So it's Monty here with you this week on Farm. I've got a real superstar with me for this episode. A farmer's daughter from the south of Scotland and a multiple gold medalist at European and World Para-Athletic Championships. She also won silver and bronze at the Tokyo Paralympics and is gunning for gold in Paris in 2024.
My name's Sammi Kinghorn. I'm a full-time wheelchair athlete and I am currently the vice captain for the South team for DoddieAid. To be asked to be part of it is really, really amazing, and trying to raise as much money as possible.
We're going to hear later from Bruce Aitchison from the Happiness is Egg-Shaped podcast. And Bruce, my goodness, is a real driving force in whipping up enthusiasm for the DoddieAid cause. He's some man, Bruce.
Make no bones about it, this is to find a cure. And Doddie Weir's no messing. You know, he holds people accountable. Although he's a big dafty, he's got an edge, and when he wants it to happen and he's got a load of people behind him, you know, are you going to say no to Jill Douglas when she tells you you're not doing enough, or are you chuff?
All that's to come. But before we get into it, I've got a huge thank you to say to Fiona and John Scott and the team at Fern Farm Holiday Cottages. They have sponsored this episode. Fern Farm is near Tain in the stunning Rossshire countryside. You can check them out at fernfarm.com/holidays or on Instagram. Search for The Mill at Fern Farm. And it's Fern, F-E-A-R-N. Sammi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm delighted. I'm delighted that you've come on board. For people who maybe don't know you, tell us a bit more about who you are.
Yeah, so I was brought up in the Scottish Borders on a farm called Middle Third Farm. I genuinely had the best upbringing ever. I just had such a freedom on the farm, and I loved it, and I loved being a part of the farm. Especially sheep work was always my favourite. My dad would always write me a nice little sick note so that I could take a couple of weeks off school so that I could do the night lambing for him. It always just made me feel very involved, because my dad would trust me from quite a young age to be able to help out, and it was just something that I really, really, really enjoyed, and something that I definitely had seen was going to be my future. But unfortunately, I had an accident when I was 14 years old on the farm. My dad was driving a forklift, and unfortunately, I got in the way of that and was left paralysed from the waist down. So now, although I still try and get as involved in the farming life as much as I can, I'm now a full-time athlete. I train twice a day, 6 days a week for athletics, and I've competed all over the world. I've competed at World Champs, Paralympics, and it's an amazing life.
It's like you're a typical bloody farmer for a minute there, Sammi. You first start talking about sheep. I wanted to hear about these Olympic medals.
I know, and it's funny, like, whenever, I think that's what I'm known as on the team, just like the farmer's girl. And people ask me questions like I'm the guru, and I'm like, I don't know that. I don't know, watch Country File. I don't know the answer to that one. But I think that's definitely what I'm known as, and it's something that honestly I love so much. I love being involved in the farm. But yeah, it's not really my life anymore. My life is a full-time athlete, a Paralympic medalist, and that's a bit mad to even think about, because I just see myself as still that wee girl from the Scottish borders.
A double Paralympic medalist, two medals within 24 hours at that last year's Paralympics. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a tough schedule. They were all backed onto each other, but it was incredible.
Is it a stupid question to ask how that felt?
It's such a strange feeling, it was weird in Tokyo because obviously my mum and dad and I had no friends and family there at all. It was just an empty stadium. That was very, very strange. Like winning, and you just like winning a medal is the maddest thing. It's something that I dream of and I hope for and I believe I can, but when you actually do it, it's like, oh gosh, it was all worthwhile. I'm being aching and sore and doing all this traveling and spending all this money on all this kit. It was worth it. That's always a really, really nice feeling. And then I obviously got to phone my friends and family at home. They were all having a big party at Middle Third Farm without me, which I felt a little bit left out. But yeah, everyone was watching me, and that's incredible, because I think although athletics is an individual sport and I'm very much there on my own, I've got this massive backing behind me, and it's always so nice to say that you're doing it for everyone else and not just for yourself.
Fear of missing out. There you are on the podium in Tokyo, and you're worried about missing a farm bash in the Scottish borders.
Yeah, because I know how much fun they are. I'd be fine if you're missing out.
Sticking with that, you talk about being the wee girl on the farm, and you're making reference there to basically a life-changing accident, unfortunate life-changing accident. Do you think maybe that's where you've come from to want to help in DoddieAid? Do you have an affinity with the big man in terms of, similar backgrounds and life-changing medical issues?
Yeah, I think when I had my accident, I was only 14 years old, and I remember all the nurses just being like, "Gosh, why are you so upbeat and so?" And I was just kind of like, oh, it could have been so much worse. And you hear about terrible things happening on farms, and I was so grateful that I could still be able, and I was still able to get around. I think there is a toughness to people that have worked on the farm. Like I definitely believe that there is. I think something has to be really, really bad to kind of bring us down. And I think that was always something I really appreciated about Doddie, was that it's absolutely crap what he's going through. And I'm sure he'd tell you yourself, it's absolutely crap, but he's going through it. And, he's just going to keep going through it. And instead of just hiding himself away and being embarrassed by all the disabilities that he's having to face and what could be coming next, he's just putting himself out there and saying, you know what, no, I'm going to help other people. And the first time I met Doddie was before he had his M&D. He was just so proud of me, and I'd never met him before, and I knew he was because of my dad and because of the Scottish borders. But the first time he met me was at an awards dinner, and he came up to me straight away and was congratulating me and calling me an inspiration. And you're just like, oh, thank you so much. And then after he got his diagnosis, I seen him again after 2017 when I won my first world medals. I won 2 gold medals and a bronze medal at the World Champs, and he came over to me straight away, and that was at Kelso show. Got me a few drinks, so he did, and gave me his jacket, and it gave me as like a little, this is something to remember me by when I'm no longer here. But he remembers I'm not that big. He's very big, so I have this Barber jacket in my cupboard that's obviously like a foot and a half longer on each arm. That's never ever going to fit me, but it's always so nice. And yeah, I see him at most sporting events. He's always there getting an award or something, and he's just always such a nice person to be around. And I know I totally imagine that he has hard days, because everyone has hard days, whether they have a disease or whatever. Every human being has hard days, and but he's trying to do something about it, and he's trying to change people's lives for MND, and I think that's amazing. So I got asked by Greg Laidlaw, who's the captain for the South, and he was just like, do you want to be my lady captain? And I was like, it's quite a weird person to slide into your Instagram anyway, so I was excited about that. And then to be asked to be part of it is really, really amazing, and trying to raise as much money as possible.
And how is it going? How's 2022 going with Team South? I don't want to just focus on Team South, because I must say, that we've got listeners all over Scotland and further afield, and other teams are available. But how's it going with Team South this year?
Yeah, honestly, when you log your miles into the app, you can then look at the league and the districts and how everyone's doing. And it's incredible when you see how much money's been raised throughout all the districts. Yeah, of course, there's a few to choose from where you're from and who you want to support and what team you want to be a part of. But as South, we're doing pretty well. I think we're in second just now, which I think is better than last year. So that's always positive. But it's so exciting to see people getting out and staying fit and active, because I think that's I always wish that even before my accident that I'd learned the power of sport, because I done sport, but just as a social level, I never wanted to be an elite athlete as a child growing up. And I think sport can really change lives. Staying active and fit can really, really change lives. And something like the Doddie app's just a very clever way to raise money, but also get people out there and people talking and people spending time together, because I think it's the best way to keep your mental health strong.
Yeah, I mean, we hear about these challenges, and we've talked about them anyway on farm before. Mental health challenges in agriculture and the stresses that farmers and those involved in the industry are under sometimes, can boil over, and that's part of the thing with DoddieAid, and there's the other a challenge at the moment, Run 1000, looking at mental health in agriculture. There's a number of these things, and I guess what you're saying there is part of it is not just about raising money and awareness for the cause, but it's also it does good to those participating.
Of course it does, and especially with being in a team, that's really, really helpful. It's my job, I get paid to train, but sometimes I still find it hard, and sometimes I don't want to go out and I don't want to go train. But I've got a team and I've got other athletes that I train with. So you see them going out, you kind of get that accountability of, right, well, I better go out and do my session. They've gone and done it. And that's the same thing as this app gives you, which I think is really, really good. You can see people log in their miles and you kind of go, right, okay. And you can, even in your district, you can set up your own little league, like say within your family or within a group of workmates. And I think that's really, really good, because it gives you accountability to say, right, we've set up this. Right, I see this person's gone and done a run, right, I better go out and do a run. And I think as human beings, we can all be lazy sometimes we do just need a kick up the arse. And I think the Doddie app's a great way just to be like, right, come on, accountability, you've signed up for this, get out and do something. So I think it's really good. And I think I can be crab as anything in the morning and be like, oh no, gosh, don't want to do this. And then halfway through my session, you can feel that your endorphins and all your hormones are changing, and I suddenly get so much happier and brighter and sprightful, and that's the power of sport.
Yeah, Sammi, you're talking there about sport and how it lifts people, and there's a lot of motivational stuff there, and I know that that's something that you do as well. You go into schools and you talk to kids and you talk to others about motivational stuff and helping people. And what are the key messages? I've a young daughter, two young daughters, one of them who's 8, and what do you say to young girls? What would you say, in fact, what would you say to the young Sammi at 12 or 13 or whatever? Where would you direct her?
Yeah, I think it's hard, like especially for young girls. Like I found it difficult as well, doing different sports and not knowing who I was or where I was, or being confident in yourself. For me, it's especially in sport, just try everything. That's always one thing I'd wished as a youngster, is that I'd tried a lot more different sports. I think sometimes being in a rural place, it's harder to try different sports because you just kind of try what you've tried at school, and it's not to be embarrassed to try different things and try everything, and don't put the pressure on yourself to be good at something, and don't put the pressure on yourself to be the best, because that really doesn't matter. As long as you find enjoyment, find friends, find a social life in sport, I think that is the best thing to do. And I think youngsters nowadays have such a pressure on them to figure out who they want to be and what they want to be at such a young age. We're deciding our subjects, so what we might go to university at 12, 13 years old. That's ridiculous. And I remember at that age thinking, I need to know what I'm going to be doing. I need to know. You don't need to know. You really, really don't. And that's fine. It's fine. I'm 26. I still don't really want to know what I want to do when I grow up. And I'm hoping I've still got a chance to figure it out. But, I just think you can go back to uni at a later time. You don't have to have your life set up. And I think I found that quite a scary, stressful, pressureful time, is, trying to have things in line because unfortunately life doesn't fall in line and things can happen, and it's taking opportunities. I think for my dad especially, being involved in my accident, if I wanted to spend time with my dad, and I know this is like a lot of farmers, if I wanted to spend time with my dad, I had to pull my boiler suit on and play with him on the farm. He didn't really get any time away from the farm. And after I had my accident, it shook him, obviously. Of course it did shake him. But it shook him a lot, to the point where he was like, right, you could have died and I've never gone to the park with you, or I've never. And I think that's one thing I always try and share when I go and do talks. And it's really hard to hear, but something can change tomorrow. A big thing can change tomorrow. So you just spend time with people, do something you enjoy. Life can be so short, or life can be very long. So why would you spend any of that time doing something you don't enjoy? So I honestly think that's the most important thing in life, is doing something that you love. I'm so lucky. My dad loves being a farmer. Like, he honestly loves it. And I've always grown up watching someone do something that they love. But I've also met loads of people that are seek because they don't enjoy what they're doing. And I think that's really important. As youngsters, they should know that you don't have to figure it out now. You can change, and you can change your mind. You can get to 30, 40, 50 and go, actually, do you know what, I'm going to do this, and not put too much pressure on yourself, because you can't be perfect all the time, and life certainly isn't.
That's a brilliant outlook, a brilliant bit of advice on life in general there, Sammi. Thanks for that. Sorry, I know this isn't about me, but just I find that hard to listen to, Sammi, because I can't help actually but just putting myself in your dad's shoes. I've girls here with me on the farm, and just, it's awful. I feel so sorry for your dad, to be fair.
Yeah, I think my dad definitely found it hard for a long time. I think that, thankfully, I think now he is, to be very honest, it's 10 years ago, past 11 years this year, and it doesn't get easier, I think, for my dad. But when I compete and when I win medals and when I race around the world, that definitely gets easier. When he sees me smile, that gets easier. And I think, unfortunately, my family deal with everything through comedy. So my dad just takes the absolute mick out of me now. And sometimes I go, that was maybe mean. I don't know if you can say that, Dad. So that's kind of how we do it. And I think my dad was never, I never used to see my dad cry, or I never used to see my dad overly open and talk about things. But it's something that we spend a lot of time doing now, is that we do talk about things a lot more. And my dad has become very, very open. My dad cried at X Factor, so he's now a completely different man. It's just a shell of him. Nice. He's far more in touch and far more accepts that it's okay to be not be okay. That whole cliche is okay, and it's okay to cry and sometimes say, I think that the thing for him, it was completely my fault. I put my hands up and say that I shouldn't have been where I was, and I still don't know to this day why I was there, because I was always taught as a child never to climb on machinery. But I was just shown off as a 14-year-old girl for a couple of split second, and that kind of changed my whole life. But I do think that speaking about it makes it so much easier, and as long as I'm happy, and what, I could have been an awful lot worse. I can still work, I can still live my own life, I pay my own bills, I have a car, I drive a car. There is literally nothing I can't do apart from stand up and put one leg in front of the other, and you're like, well, yeah, it's fine. I've just got into the old age a bit quicker. Everyone will be in that situation at some point. I've just jumped a few. So.
To be fair, you're doing something that none of us could do. Like, legs or no legs, I couldn't get into that chair and go around that track like you do. So, yeah. Well done. Sorry, I got a bit maudling there, but we're going to lift the mood because we've got another guest joining us now. We've got Bruce Aitchison. Happiness is egg-shaped. And Bruce, that's your motto, it's your mantra, it's what you live by, isn't it? Happiness.
Yeah, it tries to be. As Sammi said, sometimes days are tougher than others, but it's your outlook. And I remember a few years ago I went to the Edinburgh Festival and I saw a comedian called Stephen K. Amos, and his show was called Find the Funny. And that was somebody putting a phrase into probably how I find life. I try and find the funny bit. I'm the youngest of three, which means I was always looking for attention and, all those things, and shouting the loudest and trying to make people laugh and smile. And I don't think I've ever lost that. I'm a 42-year-old who still thinks he's Peter Pan and 14 years old, and I still find very immature things funny. And I cry at X Factor just like Sammy's old man. I get very emotional at DIY SOS and all those things. But I think that's probably taken me a while to get there, a bit like Sammy's old man. It maybe takes things to happen and a bit of experience and feeling a bit more confident in your own skin. And Happiness is Egg Shapes helped me do that, because it's probably given me an alter ego that I could play through, and through that I've been invited to do things like this. And I get Sammi Kinghorn's number and I get to annoy her on WhatsApp, and that's quite cool, because she's an absolute hero and role model of mine. And we're on a WhatsApp group with Doddie Weir, Stuart Hogg, Greg Laidlaw, Jill Douglas. It's for a wee daft lad like me from Stow, I pinch myself often.
Just you wee daft lad from Stow, but it's more than that. You're the man in the hot seat on these things, far more than I am, actually. Do you want to give our listeners a wee bit of a flavour for what you do and how you take forward with your listeners?
Well, I think I need to give credit where credit's due. As a wee lad collecting glasses in the volunteer hall at rugby dinners, I can remember watching men, as it was then, there weren't any women at these things, standing up and giving speeches and making 300 people laugh and hang on their every word. While I wanted to play rugby for Scotland, I also wanted to stand up behind that table and deliver things that people enjoyed. I started speaking very early, going to rugby dinners and burn suppers, and through somebody like Doddie Weir, I actually spoke at a dinner, and Doddie was just in the company with his mate Gary Armstrong, and we spoke afterwards. And Doddie's known me all my life because he's a wee bit older than me, and families have known each other for a long time, and having him engage with me like that was a massive lift. When Doddie was finishing off hosting hospitality at Scottish Rugby at Murrayfield on match days, I actually got to go and watch him, and he was holding court with 500 people in this room, and it was an absolute joy to watch, phenomenal to watch, the way he made everyone feel at ease and comfortable, but also on edge, because if you made one false move, Doddie was on you. It was done with love and with respect, and it was Doddie who had said he wanted me to be his successor in that room. And, talking about emotional, I'm filling up a wee bit just talking about it, because it's an amazing thing. And then last year's DoddieAid, I got in touch with Rob Wainwright and said, listen, I think we could have some live shows here. We're in lockdown. Everybody's a bit fed up. Everybody's on Zoom anyway. What about having live shows? And we had a bit of a chat, and then, the first one we kind of fumbled through, and then the next one got a wee bit better, and then we got Lorraine Kelly off the telly, which was just unbelievable, and then we got Sir Chris Hoy and Ali McCoist, and off the back of that, my confidence grew, and a friend of mine, Sean Phelan, who I love to bits, he produces my podcast. He'd been at me for ages. You should do a podcast. But it was DoddieAid that gave me the confidence to do that. And after DoddieAid, the dust had settled, we lined up some guests, and away we went. Again, the first couple probably weren't that flash, and they've got a bit better, and they're now being listened to all over the place. And I've had some nice feedback, and so I've had an absolute ball. And again, I get to pinch myself because I'm just a wee daft lad for Stow who's getting to do it. The one thing that does make me laugh though is, where do people listen to the podcast? People were listening to us in the shower. Let's make no bones about it.
Great.
It's a funny thing. It is a funny thing. When we set off with this podcast being more rural and more farming orientated, I pictured people in tractors or milking parlours or whatever. But I don't know about listeners. Are you listening in the shower? I don't know. That's a strange one. I must say, Bruce. Actually, I was really excited when producer Dave and I had the chat about having you on, because last year you were absolutely nailed it with the live DoddieAid shows. I'm not saying this year you haven't, but last year you absolutely nailed it. And my wife and I were in that audience tapping away saying, we want more, we want this every week or whatever. So I think the dark days of lockdown, it was a really good thing to be. And it just, people like Sammy and just, Ali McCoist, that was just legendary having him on. That sort of thing, it raised everyone's spirits. And I guess, coming back to the DoddieAid thing, that's what it's about. Sammy and I were having that chat before you joined. It's not just about physically getting fit or raising money for a good cause. It lifts you.
Absolutely, and Sammy there'll be days where she has to drag her backside out of bed to do a session, but afterwards, although she'll be tired, and you'll always feel good, Sammy, huh?
Yeah, always. You always feel so much better after doing a little bit of exercise. And as I said before, I wish it was something that I'd known about younger. I wish I'd known that sport can help your mental health, and it was really important for your mental health, not just you got to go and run the beep test and PE. I wish I'd actually known the true power of sport about finding something that you enjoy, and that it doesn't all have to be, just the fitness block in PE. It can be enjoyable.
Yeah, I think, and that's where we're doubling up with farming and DoddieAid, and we've got an elite athlete on with us. Being out and being active, whether that's running a mile or going for a walk over the hills with your dog, or doing a bit of physical work on the farm, or going and lifting weights, it's all the same thing. It's that release, it's that use of, I think we've got very, very immobile. We spend everything, on the screen. We can shop from home. We can do, folk didn't even walk around the supermarket anymore. So just being active, and then when you're active with others, I think we need to get away from talking about physical health, because for a lot of people it's so confusing. That means we've got to look a certain way, whereas actually that's not what we need. What we need to do is feel connected to people. Let's do things together. I couldn't do what Sammy does because my motivation came from the team around me, and I know Sammy has coaches and support there and training partners. But at the end of the day, it's Sammy that has to make the commitment for her to improve, whereas I was there. It was my social event. Sport was my social event, and now I don't necessarily have that as much. But what I do have is the chance to meet people, and I love just being around people. And if we can be active and physical at the same time, that just makes us feel good. And if we can change the rhetoric a little bit from physical to actually let's just do stuff that makes us feel good, then we'll get more physically fit. And that, to me, we need to reverse the process there a little bit.
I just love the fact that this is happening. I love the entertainment value of it. I love watching Bruce. I love listening to it all.
I think what's giving you the buzz is feeling connected to something, and that's back to my point about I had to be a team player. It also didn't help that I was hopeless at most things and needed other people to help me. So the bit that I've loved is people saying how it's made them feel, sharing things on social media. There's a lot of people who are not very social on social media, whereas if you're a member of a DoddieAid group, it's very sociable. People are sharing stories and then they're getting praise. How often are people trying to do something physically and being shot down because of the way they look, because they're not very good, because of the kit they're wearing, because, all of those things just break my heart. And it's even tougher. Girls are judged hugely on how they look and what they wear, and you don't have to be on social media for very long to see adverts for this and this sort of image that is portrayed as what's being perfect. Whereas when you see the groups on DoddieAid, we've got all shapes, sizes, ages, everything, and everybody's contributing to the same thing. If we all thought, if you win, I win, and if I win, you win, what a better place we would have. How amazing would that be? But we've got everybody aligned and pointing in the same direction, and whether you're just walking a dog or you're running 7 marathons in 7 days, you're all contributing to the same thing, and feeling that togetherness is what I get the buzz out of. I get a huge kick out of people like Anne Noble and Abby Smith, who are not going to win any international caps, but when I see what they're doing on social media, it blows my mind. Iona Campbell in Edinburgh is doing amazing things. The whole of Orkney seems to have signed up, and they're all backing each other. That spirit and that community is what keeps us all involved and drives us forward.
Yeah, no, I totally get that, and I think it's amazing what you're all doing. Sammy, do you think that this is something, back to what we were talking earlier about you being from the farming background and similar background to Doddie and what have you? Do you feel that there's a real kind of support net mechanism there as well in farming?
Yeah, I think so. I think everyone in farming, especially in the Scottish Borders, knows Doddie and knows what they're all trying to do. And I think, especially, when I had my accident, the amount of people that went round to my dad, and especially farmers, because I think, like you said, being a farmer, you you feel it a bit more of a lump in your throat when you hear what my dad's been through and things like that. And I think the support that farmers do give each other it's a very special one. It is just that tap in the back, that little, don't worry, like, I'm here, we are here, and it doesn't have to be any more words than that, which I always think is a really, really nice thing. I think, go back like to the DoddieAid thing, I honestly think one of the best things on the DoddieAid app is that you can be your own little league within your family, within your friends. Like my partner's joined up, but he doesn't do, he's an electrical engineer. He spends a lot of time just on his computer at home. But I'm like, right, you need to go and do your walk. And I think he's even been like, he feels better just getting out and having a little walk. And you don't have to be adding miles and miles on. And I like seeing that. I like seeing the people they're scared to join up because they're like, well, I'm not cycling 150 miles a week, or it doesn't matter. Walk 400 meters a night. That's fine. If it, something to get you out of the house. And I think, for a lot of people over the last few years, with COVID and things, especially if you're not a farmer, or if your job isn't outside, it's been very hard to get outside because you're doing your job, and people are probably working a lot longer hours than they are normally because their work's at home, and they can just sit there and do that. And it's not a great way to be. I definitely don't think it's a great way to be. My dad's always been, he's a big believer in the whole, if you're out in the windy day, you'll sleep better at night. I don't know how many times I was told that as a child. Go outside for half an hour, you'll sleep better. All right, Dad. I'm not sure of that actually, but constantly I was told that. I do definitely believe it now, but as a child, when I was freezing cold and it was raining, Dad was like, it's good for you, some fresh air. But it does, and I think it's I think farmers have learnt that a lot quicker than other people. Being out and about and having the fresh air, and all these people that when they put their kids out in all weathers, I was genuinely told, well, you'll only go skin deep. On you go. If it wasn't muddy enough, I was sent back out. So I think, it's just getting out there and getting active.
Good. Where's it going, Bruce? Where's DoddieAid going this year?
It's an interesting one because last year, exceeded everyone's expectations. There's no way we thought it was going to raise over 1 million. There's no way we thought we were going to travel as far. The number of people involved, the events, the people that got involved, and it's going to be tough to top. We were also in lockdown, so we were almost the only show in town. The live shows were the only thing on TV, really. The chance to get out and get active, you weren't training, there was no teams running, there was no other social clubs to be at. It was the only thing going. So to see the success of this one's just spectacular. I think now that DoddieAid has contributed to other things. The government is now pledging to put money into it. The foundation is allocating funds to various different projects and tests, as well as helping families with the hardship that is dealing with MND, whether it's a family member or, having to care for them or whatever it may be. These things are really tough. If DoddieAid does nothing but make a whole load of people feel better for a period of time, I think it's been hugely successful. If it creates a whole load of money that can then go to get closer to that cure, make no bones about it. This isn't just for research. This is to find a cure. And Doddie Weir's no messing. He holds people accountable. Although he's a big dafty, he's got an edge, and when he wants it to happen, and he's got a load of people behind him, are you going to say no to Jill Douglas when she tells you you're not doing enough, or are you chuff? So you just get on with things. So I think come the 12th of February, we'll be looking back on a phenomenal 6 weeks where we've probably built some relationships, even if it's just over social media, with people that hopefully one day we'll bump into, and we'll be able to have a walk or share a beer or go for a coffee with. I hope that. I hope people establish habits. I've read things on social media where people last year exercised every day and now they've continued it for more than a year. So people have built in habits to their life that's made their life better. How amazing is that to hear those things? So there's the main purpose. Let's find a cure for MND, and DoddieAid is going to support that because it takes pennies. But what it's also doing is making the world a better place because a whole load of people are feeling better. And if you're feeling better, you'll be kinder, you'll respect your environment, you'll contribute to the community, you'll look for other things to do. And it's inspired people to do more, to help others. And that is what inspires me. I love the thought that my wee daft bit for an hour on a Wednesday night makes people maybe go for a longer walk and ask somebody for another fiver that contributes to it. I hope it's just another step in the journey. It would be amazing to think that in years to come we'll not need it because we'll have the cure and people will be looked after and it won't be a thing. But I reckon DoddieAid is going to last for a lot longer than me.
Sammi, before you go, and thank you very much for your time, because you're looking for big things at the moment, aren't you? You're going for gold, as they say.
Yeah, I am. It's definitely racking up already. I'm away to warm weather training camp, which will be lovely for all of February and March. Try and get myself a bit faster. This year I've only got Commonwealth Games, so a nice little chance to race with a saltire on my chest, to compete for Scotland, which is really exciting and something that I always really, really enjoy doing. But I've already started my campaign, my training for Paris for the next Paralympics, and hopefully this time it won't be bronze or silver and I'll be able to pick up a gold.
Best of luck to you. Absolute best of luck to you. I'm sure we'll keep in touch and maybe hear from you after that. We'll maybe have you back on Farm at a later date. Bruce, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sammi, thank you very much. Absolute star and an absolute pleasure to have on board.
Thank you for having me.
Really super guests. What a brilliant chat. And thanks, of course, to the man himself, Doddie, who we heard from at the start of the show. If you're not taking part in DoddieAid, think about finding someone who is and supporting them, or just making a donation online. It's a fantastic cause, and as you've heard, every little helps with this, and we really can work towards making a difference. So come on, find someone, give them your support. On Farm is produced by our team here at Scene&HerdPR and Marketing. And as I said, this episode is very kindly sponsored by Fiona and John Scott at Fern Farm Holiday Cottages in the stunning Rossshire countryside near Tain. A beautiful place to get away for a few days. You can head online to fernfarm.com/holidays or search Instagram for The Mill at Fern Farm to see their beautifully presented cottages. We're extremely grateful to Fiona and John, as without sponsors like them, these on-farm episodes simply could not happen. So that's it from me, and bye for now.